This tutorial is all about showing you an alternative to traditional framing for watercolour. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to Sue from my Patreon membership for inspiring this tutorial, and a big shout out to Angela Fair for educating me on how to actually varnish and attach my watercolour paintings to wooden panels and presenting them in this really modern way. And I'll put a link for Angela's YouTube channel in the description below. She has some amazing tutorials there. So let's get started. So I'm going to be using this sheep watercolour painting, and if you'd like to watch the step-by-step tutorial of this, you can find a link for it in the description below. So these are my materials. This is the wooden panel I'm going to be using. It's 8 by 10 inches, and I'm just going to remove the cellophane. For all the materials I'm using, please see the description below, but it's quite a sturdy sort of panel here, untreated wood. And I'm going to use a sandpaper block. You can just use sandpaper sheets. And I'm using Gamblin Cold Wax Medium for the final finish and protection. You could use Dorland Wax Medium or an Acrylic Varnish. And I'm using an acrylic matte medium here to actually stick the watercolour painting to the wooden frame. You could use Mod Podge or another quality adhesive. I'm using Kamar varnish, and it's a really good varnish for oils, watercolours and acrylics. And it has a non-yellowing protection. It's acid free and it allows you to rework after use. And you can see the back here, it gives you full instructions on how to use the varnish, and I'll talk about this later in the tutorial. I'm also going to use a primer, and that's to give the painting extra protection from the wooden frame. And you can actually use a very good quality white matte emulsion as well if you don't want to go out and buy this especially. But as you can see, there's instructions on the back there, and I'm just applying this now with a large flat synthetic brush, just applying that there. I'm going to give it a couple of coats and I'm going to let it dry in between for 24 hours. You don't have to do this stage, it's just for added protection. So I'm really lathering this here, making sure I get all the corners and get it nice and smooth with my flat brush. So I'm just applying the second layer now after 24 hours. And it really does give it that added protection between the actual wooden frame and your watercolour painting. And I'm going to allow this to dry now for another 24 hours. So here is the dried panel now with the gesso, 2 coats of gesso. What I'm doing now is I'm just using a couple of L-shaped mounts here, just to kind of get the size of the painting. I'm just measuring 10 by 8 here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little bit outside that so that my painting actually overhangs the wooden frame, so I make sure that I don't undercut. And I'm just marking there with my HB pencil the actual sort of size, and I'm going to cut out just outside those pencil lines. Do mark very gently with your pencil so you can remove any lines later with a rubber quite easily. So I'm just drawing some straight lines there, and now I'm cutting with my craft knife, with a ruler there actually that protects your sort of fingers, but do make sure if you haven't got one of those you sort of cut safely when you're using any sharp blades. So I'm just very carefully making sure I line this up here. There's nothing worse than cutting too much of your painting, so always veer on the side of caution and cut a little bit less. Make sure your craft knife is sharp, because sometimes it can tear the paper if the blade is blunt. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply the acrylic medium to the wooden frame. I'm going to use a large brush to paint this on, and really make sure you paint right up to the edge here. So when you actually stick your painting on there, it's the corners sometimes that you have to watch out for. So just giving it a final sort of blend here with my brush before I apply the painting. Here is the painting. And for extra security, I'm just going to put a little bit of the acrylic medium on the back of the painting, and I'm going to use the same brush, the large brush, to apply the medium, and again painting right up to the edges and the corners. And now stick the painting to the frame and make sure there's an even amount of overhang. So you've got, with your fingertips, make sure that all of the painting is on the frame. And then you can roll it on to really secure the painting to the wooden frame. If you don't have a roller, place some paper towel over the top of the painting, then press firmly with your fingertips. The paper towel will protect the painting from any marks. Take your time doing this and really make sure you pay attention to the edges and the corners as well, pressing down firmly. Now apply some paper towel over the top of the painting, covering the entire painting for protection. Then place a board on top of this to cover the entire painting. And after that, place heavy objects or books on the top of the painting and allow to set for 24 hours. Then remove the books. It's like the big reveal here. I'm just removing the board now and the paper towel. So here's the painting and it is stuck nice and firmly to the frame. I've actually placed some paper towel underneath the painting again to protect it from any dirty marks, etc. using my craft knife, and I'm cutting the paper that's overhanging the edge of the board now. I'm using a cutting mat here underneath to protect my table surface, and sometimes you have to sort of swipe twice with the blade, and again make sure the blade is not blunt because sometimes it can tear your paper. And do this each side till you remove all the overhanging edge paper. What's good about the frame is that your hands are protected here, but if you are using sharp objects, please be careful. So here is the painting attached to the frame. What I'm going to do now is I'm using a sandpaper block and I'm just going to smooth out the edges where the paper is attached to the frame and also where there's a little bit of acrylic medium. So just soften and smooth out and use a cloth to get rid of any dust as well. So I've taken my painting outside. You need a well ventilated area, and I think the best place is always outside. And as you can see, I'm spraying the varnish about 12 inches away horizontally and then vertically. You can apply as many coats as you like and it dries within 15 minutes. Please follow all manufacturing instructions on the back of the can. So I'm going to use the cold wax medium here to apply to the dried painting now. The varnish has dried. This is for extra protection, water resistancy and a matte finish. Now you can use acrylic varnish to actually varnish the painting at this stage as well for extra protection and finish. So there's some good ones out there, and you can use satin, matte or high gloss varnish for whatever sort of finish you require for your painting, and it's a good way of experimenting. But as you can see here, I'm applying liberally with my gloved hand. I didn't really want to apply it with my fingertips here. And I'm trying to get all the corners as well. Make sure I really apply it liberally here. And what I'm doing now is just using a paper towel just to take off a little bit of the excess wax before I buff it. And I'm going to allow about 15 minutes to allow this sort of wax to sort of sit on top of the painting there. So I'm buffing now with my paper towel. You can use a clean cloth and just work in sort of circular motions, working that wax until it becomes smooth, and you can even see a soft sheen even though it's supposed to be matte. Just working on the edges, all the little parts of it. And I have to say this is quite enjoyable because you can sort of see it come to life in a way, and it really does. As you can see there, you've got a nice soft sort of looking sheen there. Even though it's supposed to be a matte finish, I can sort of see a soft sheen, and it really brings out the colours as well. So you can see the edges there. I'm really pleased with this. So it's fully protected, ready to hang, no need for framing or glass. So I really hope you found that tutorial helpful. I must say I learned something myself. I've never done this before, and I just took it through a step-by-step process, pretty much as Angela demonstrated in her tutorial. It really does give it that modern look. So I hope it inspires you, and I hope it was helpful finding alternative materials to the ones that I actually demonstrated here. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please put them in the comments section below. And if you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel where you'll get updates of my latest tutorials. And if you'd like to learn more about watercolour painting and get access to exclusive tutorials and downloadable outline sketches, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? Details about my Patreon membership can be found in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.